Deho pressed his hand against the cold metal wall of his small ship. The lights flickered again, and he knew his time was running out. The air tasted stale and metallic. His breathing was getting harder with each passing hour. The ship's computer kept beeping warnings that he tried to ignore. He looked at the picture on his desk. It showed him and his sister Bora standing together on their home planet. They were both smiling. That was before everything went wrong. Before he spoke the words that changed his life forever. The Kelrani people had rules. Very strict rules. Some Kelrani were born to be leaders. Others were born to serve. This was the way things had always been. No one questioned it. No one except Deho. He remembered the day he stood up in the Great Assembly. His voice shook as he spoke to the hundreds of Kelrani leaders. He told them the lower castes deserved better treatment. He said all Kelrani should be equal. He suggested they should talk to other species instead of looking down on them. The silence that followed his speech was terrible. Then came the anger, the shouting, the accusations of madness and treason. Elder Kulmin, the most powerful leader of their world, stood up slowly. His old face was full of rage. "You speak poison, young Deho. You would destroy everything our people have built. You are no longer welcome among the Kelrani." Within hours, security forces surrounded Deho's home. Bora helped him escape through the underground tunnels she had designed as an engineer. She couldn't come with him. Their parents were old and sick. Someone had to stay and take care of them. "Go, brother," she whispered as she hugged him goodbye. "Maybe you will find a place where your ideas can live." Now floating alone in space, Deho wondered if such a place existed. He had tried to contact several worlds. All of them refused to help him. The Galactic Council had sent messages to every civilized planet. They called him dangerous. They said his ideas would bring chaos. The Galactic Council controlled most of the galaxy. It was made up of the oldest and most powerful species. They all believed in order through hierarchy. Everyone had their place. Everyone stayed in their place. That was how peace was maintained. Humans were not part of the Galactic Council. They were too new, too primitive. Most council members barely acknowledged that humans existed. They lived in a small corner of the galaxy and minded their own business. The council preferred it that way. Deho's ship shuddered. More warning lights flashed red. The life support system was failing faster now. He had maybe 6 more hours of air. The ship's distress beacon had been broadcasting for days, but no one answered. He sat in his pilot chair and closed his eyes. Maybe it was better this way. At least he had tried to speak the truth. At least he had stood up for what was right, even if it cost him everything. A new sound made him open his eyes. The communication system was crackling to life. A voice came through the static, speaking in broken Kelrani. "Unknown vessel, this is Captain Sojin of the human ship Harmony. We received your distress signal. Do you need help?" Deho stared at the communication panel. Humans? He had heard about them but never met one. The council taught that humans were backwards and violent. They had only discovered space travel a few hundred years ago. What could they possibly do to help him? But what choice did he have? "Yes," Deho said into the microphone. "My life support is failing. I have nowhere else to go." "Understood. We are changing course to reach you. Hold on. We are coming." The human ship arrived 3 hours later. Through his small window, Deho could see it approaching. It was smaller than Kelrani vessels, but moved with surprising grace. The design was different from anything he had seen before. More curved, less harsh. The humans docked with his ship carefully. Deho heard footsteps in the airlock. His heart was beating fast. What would they do to him? Would they hand him over to the council for a reward? The airlock door opened. A human female stepped through. She was shorter than Deho, with dark hair tied back and kind eyes. She wore a blue uniform with badges he didn't recognize. "I am Captain Sojin Park," she said, speaking Kelrani much better than he expected. "Are you injured?" Deho shook his head. He was confused by her tone. She sounded genuinely concerned, not suspicious or angry. "My name is Deho. I was Kelrani. I am grateful for your help, but you should know that helping me might cause problems for you." Sojin tilted her head. "What kind of problems?" "The Galactic Council has declared me an enemy. They say I am dangerous. If they know you helped me—" "Let me worry about that," Sojin said with a small smile. "Right now you need medical attention and a safe place to rest. Will you come with us?" Behind her, 2 more humans appeared. One was a man with gentle hands who introduced himself as Dr. Taman. The other was a woman named Hana. who immediately began examining his ship's systems. "Your ship took a lot of damage," Hana said. "The engine is barely working. You're lucky to be alive." As they transferred him to their ship, Deho noticed something strange. The humans worked together smoothly, but he could see they were all different ranks. Yet they treated each other with respect. The doctor gave orders to the captain when it came to medical matters. The engineer offered suggestions that everyone listened to. This was not how things worked in Kelrani society, or in any society he knew of. The human ship was clean and bright. The corridors were wide enough for different-sized beings to pass comfortably. Everything felt welcoming. So Jin led him to a small but comfortable room. "You can stay here as long as you need. We are heading back to Earth. You are welcome to come with us, or we can drop you off anywhere else you prefer." Earth? Deho had heard the name but knew little about the human homeworld. "Our home planet. It's not much by galactic standards, but it's a good place. Safe, peaceful. We take care of each other there." After she left, Deho sat on the soft bed and tried to understand what was happening. These humans had saved his life without asking for anything in return. They offered him shelter without knowing who he was or what he had done. In all his years studying galactic politics, he had never encountered such behavior. It went against everything he thought he knew about how civilized species acted. Maybe, he thought as he drifted off to sleep for the first time in days, Bora was right. Maybe there was a place where his ideas could live. Maybe that place was called Earth. Deho woke up feeling better than he had in weeks. The air was clean and fresh. The room was quiet except for the gentle hum of the ship's engines. For the first time since leaving his homeworld, he felt safe. A soft knock came at his door. "Come in," he called. Dr. Taman entered carrying a tray of food. The smell was strange but not unpleasant. "Good morning, Deho. I brought you breakfast. Captain Sojin would like to speak with you when you're ready." The food was unlike anything Deho had ever tasted. There were fruits that were sweet and juicy, bread that was soft and warm, a hot drink that made him feel more alert. Everything was prepared with care. When he finished eating, Deho made his way to the bridge. The human crew members he passed all nodded politely. Some even smiled. No one stared at him or whispered behind his back. He was clearly different from them, but they didn't seem to mind. Captain Sojin was studying star charts when he arrived. She looked up and gestured to a chair beside her. "Please sit. How are you feeling?" "Much better, thank you. Your doctor and your food have helped me recover quickly." "I'm glad to hear it." Sojin turned to face him fully. "I hope you don't mind, but I looked up information about the Kelrani. I wanted to understand your situation better." Deho tensed. "What did you find?" "Not much, unfortunately. The galactic databases don't say much about internal Kelrani politics, but I did find the Council's message about you. They claim you're a dangerous radical who wants to destroy civilized society." "And what do you think?" Sojin was quiet for a moment. "I think that when powerful people call someone dangerous, it's usually because that person is telling an uncomfortable truth." Her words surprised him. "You don't know me. How can you be sure I'm not actually dangerous?" "Because dangerous people don't usually sacrifice everything to speak up for others. Tell me, what did you really say that made them so angry?" Deho found himself telling Sojin everything. About the caste system on his world. About how the lower castes were treated like property. About his belief that all Kelrani deserved equal rights and opportunities. About his suggestion that they should try to learn from other species instead of dismissing them. Sojin listened without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. "On Earth," she finally said, "we learned long ago that societies are strongest when everyone has a chance to contribute. It took us many centuries and a lot of suffering to understand this, but now we know that diversity makes us better, not worse. The Council says humans are primitive and violent." Sojin laughed. "We were violent, that's true. We fought terrible wars. We treated each other badly for thousands of years. But we learned from our mistakes. We grew up." Over the next few days as they traveled toward Earth, Deho spent time with different crew members. Engineer Hana showed him how human technology worked. It was simpler than Kelrani designs, but more efficient. Instead of forcing systems to work through rigid programming, humans built machines that could adapt and learn. "We don't try to control everything," Hana explained as she adjusted the engine settings. "We build things that can think for themselves and make good choices." Dr. Tae Min taught him about human medicine. Instead of treating symptoms, humans focused on preventing illness and helping the body heal itself. They had eliminated most diseases not through superior technology, but through better living conditions and care for everyone. Healthy societies create healthy people, Tae Min said. When everyone has enough food, clean water, and safe shelter, most medical problems solve themselves. The communications officer, a young man named Junho, showed Daeho recordings of Earth's history. He saw how humans had overcome slavery, wars, and inequality. It hadn't been easy or quick, but they had done it. Every generation tried to make things better for the next one, Junho explained. Sometimes they failed, but they never stopped trying. The most amazing thing was how the crew worked together. Daeho watched Captain So-jin ask for advice from junior officers. He saw Dr. Tae Min respectfully disagree with the captain's orders when medical safety was involved. He witnessed engineer Hana teaching her skills to younger crew members instead of hoarding knowledge. This was completely different from Kelrani society, where lower castes never questioned higher ones, where knowledge was kept secret to maintain power, where cooperation was seen as weakness. How do you maintain order? Daeho asked So-jin one evening as they shared dinner. If everyone can speak freely and disagree, how do you get anything done? We've learned that good ideas can come from anyone, So-jin replied. A junior engineer might see a problem that a senior captain misses. A young soldier might have a solution that an old general never considered. When we listen to everyone, we make better decisions. But what about discipline? What about respect for authority? True authority comes from earning respect, not demanding it. A leader who has to force people to follow them isn't really leading. They're just bullying. On their 5th day together, So-jin showed Daeho long-range scans of Earth. It was a blue and green world covered with clouds and oceans. It looked peaceful and beautiful. It's not perfect, So-jin said. We still have problems. People still disagree and argue. But we've learned to solve our conflicts with words instead of weapons. We've learned to take care of each other. Why are you telling me all this? Daeho asked. Because you stood up for the same things we believe in. Because you sacrificed everything to speak the truth. Because we think you might find a home with us. That night, Daeho lay in his bed thinking about everything he had learned. These humans had been dismissed by the galaxy as primitive and unimportant. But they had solved problems that the great galactic civilizations couldn't even acknowledge existed. They had learned to live together despite their differences. They had created a society based on equality and mutual respect. They had turned their greatest weakness, their diversity, into their greatest strength. More importantly, they had offered him something no other species would: acceptance. Not just tolerance, but genuine welcome. They didn't want to change him or use him. They simply wanted to give him a place where he could belong. For the first time since leaving his homeworld, Daeho began to hope. Maybe Bora had been right. Maybe there was a place where his ideas could not only live, but thrive. As Earth grew larger in the view screen, Daeho made his decision. He would accept the humans' offer. He would make Earth his new home. He didn't know it yet, but this decision would change not just his life, but the fate of the entire galaxy. Earth was more beautiful than Daeho had imagined. As their ship descended through the atmosphere, he saw vast oceans, green forests, and cities that seemed to grow naturally from the landscape. Everything looked alive and vibrant. The spaceport was busy but organized. Ships from many different human colonies came and went peacefully. Daeho noticed that the workers were of different ages, genders, and backgrounds, all working together smoothly. Captain So-jin walked with him through the arrival process. Instead of harsh interrogations or invasive scans, there were friendly officials who asked simple questions and welcomed him to Earth. One officer, a middle-aged man named Jinwoo, was assigned to help him settle in. Don't worry, Jinwoo said with a warm smile. We've helped many refugees start new lives here. You're in good hands. They traveled by air transport to a place called Seoul District. The city was a perfect blend of old and new. Ancient temples stood beside modern buildings. Traditional gardens were woven throughout the urban landscape. Everything was clean and well-maintained. Jinwoo brought him to a residential area with small houses and tree-lined streets. This is where you'll be staying, he said, stopping in front of a modest home with a garden full of colorful flowers. The front door opened before they could knock. A man about Daeho's age stepped out, followed by a woman and a teenage girl. They all looked curious but friendly. This is the Lee family, Jinwoo said. Kyung-ho, Mi-young, and their daughter Subin. They volunteered to host you while you get settled. Kyung-ho stepped forward and bowed slightly. Welcome to our home, Dae-ho. We're honored to have you as our guest. Dae-ho was confused. Why would you want a stranger in your house? You don't even know me, Mi-young laughed gently. Everyone is a stranger until they become a friend. Besides, we have extra space and you need a place to stay. It's simple. Subin, who looked to be about 16, studied Dae-ho with bright, curious eyes. Are you really from another planet? What's it like? Do you have family there? Subin, her mother warned gently. Let him settle in first. There will be time for questions later. The Lee house was comfortable and welcoming. Dae-ho's room was small but had everything he needed. There were books on the shelves, art on the walls, and a window that looked out over the garden. It felt like a real home, not just a place to sleep. That evening, the family shared dinner with him. The food was delicious and filling. They asked about his journey and listened with genuine interest to his stories. When he mentioned his sister Bora, Mi-young's eyes filled with sympathy. It must be hard to be separated from family, she said. We'll help you find a way to contact her safely. Over the following weeks, Dae-ho began to understand human society better. Jinwoo took him to various offices and institutions, helping him get identification documents, medical care, and language lessons. Every person they met was patient and helpful. The doctor who examined him was thorough but gentle. The language teacher adjusted her lessons to his learning style. The employment counselor spent hours understanding his skills and interests before suggesting possible jobs. We want you to find work that makes you happy, the counselor explained. Life is too short to spend it doing things you don't enjoy. This attitude amazed Dae-ho. On his homeworld, people were assigned jobs based on their caste. Personal preferences didn't matter. Here, humans seemed to believe that everyone deserved to pursue their dreams. Eventually, Jinwoo brought him to meet Dr. Hae-won, who worked for Earth's Xenological Institute. She was a distinguished woman with silver hair and kind eyes who specialized in studying alien cultures. We could use your help, Dr. Hae-won said during their meeting. You understand galactic politics better than any human. Your knowledge could help us avoid mistakes as we interact with other species. What would you want me to do? Teach us. Share your knowledge of different alien cultures, their histories, their beliefs. Help us understand how to communicate better with them. Dae-ho was surprised. You want to learn from me? But humans are considered primitive by galactic standards. Dr. Hae-won smiled. We've found that every culture has something valuable to teach. Even the most advanced civilizations can learn from those they consider beneath them. Working at the Xenological Institute was unlike any job Dae-ho had ever imagined. His colleagues treated him as an equal, not as a curiosity or a source of intelligence. They asked for his opinions and actually listened to his answers. He helped them understand why certain alien species behaved the way they did. He explained the complex web of alliances and rivalries that shaped galactic politics. Most importantly, he showed them how human values of equality and cooperation were completely foreign to most alien civilizations. That's why the Council fears you, he told Dr. Hae-won one day. Your ideas are dangerous to them. If other species see that cooperation works better than hierarchy, their whole system falls apart. At home with the Lee family, Dae-ho experienced something he had never known: unconditional acceptance. Kyung-ho worked as an engineer and often asked Dae-ho's advice on technical problems. Mi-young taught children at a local school and shared stories about her students. Subin became like a younger sister to him. She was curious about everything and full of dreams for the future. She wanted to become a space explorer and visit other worlds. I want to see what's out there, she told him one evening as they worked in the garden together. I want to meet aliens and learn about their cultures. Maybe I can help bring everyone together. Her innocent optimism reminded Dae-ho of his sister Bora. It made him both happy and sad. One day, while working late at the institute, Dae-ho received a message on a secure channel. His heart jumped when he recognized the sender code. It was from Bora. Brother, her message said, I hope this reaches you safely. Things are getting worse here. The Council is planning something big. They're afraid of human influence spreading. They think your ideas are like a disease that could infect the whole galaxy. They want to do something about Earth before it's too late. Be careful. I love you. Dae-ho stared at the message screen, his mind racing. The Galactic Council saw humanity as a threat, Not a military threat, but something much more dangerous. A threat to their way of thinking. He thought about everything he had learned on Earth. About equality and cooperation. About societies that grew stronger through diversity. About people who helped strangers without expecting anything in return. These ideas were dangerous to the Council because they worked. They worked better than the rigid hierarchies and caste systems that held galactic civilization together. Daeho realized he had a choice to make. He could keep quiet and enjoy his new life on Earth, or he could warn the humans about what was coming and help them prepare. He thought about the Lee family, who had welcomed him without question, about his colleagues at the Institute, who valued his knowledge and respected his opinions, about Captain Sojin and her crew, who had saved his life. These people had shown him kindness when the rest of the galaxy had turned their backs on him. They had given him a home and a purpose. Now it was time to return the favor. The next morning, Daeho walked into Dr. Haywon's office with a grim expression. "We need to talk," he said. "The Galactic Council is coming, and they're not coming in peace." Dr. Haywon's face grew pale as Daeho explained Bora's warning. Within hours, emergency meetings were called across Earth's government. Military leaders, diplomats, and scientists gathered to hear what the Kelrani exile had to say. Admiral Yi Jun, commander of Earth's defense forces, listened carefully as Daeho described the Galactic Council's fleet capabilities. President Haiwan, a calm woman who had led Earth through many crises, asked detailed questions about Council politics and motivations. "How much time do we have?" Admiral Yi Jun asked. Bora said they were preparing for departure, with their fastest ships maybe 2 weeks before they reached the outer system. President Haiwan leaned back in her chair. "What do they want? Are they planning to invade us?" Daeho shook his head. "They want to eliminate the threat you represent. But not through conquest. They'll probably demand you submit to Council authority. They'll want to control your government, your education, your communication with other species. And if we refuse, then they'll use force. They have the ships and weapons to destroy Earth's defenses easily." The room fell silent. Earth's military was strong but small. They had focused on exploration and peacekeeping, not preparing for galactic war. "There has to be another way," President Haiwan said finally. "We've always solved problems through diplomacy. There must be something we can do." That's when Daeho had an idea. "There is something. But it's dangerous and it might not work." He explained his plan. Instead of preparing for battle, Earth should send a message across the galaxy. A message that would reach the oppressed peoples on every Council world. A message about human society and the possibility of something better. "The Council fears your ideas more than your weapons," Daeho said. "That's their weakness. If we can show other species what humanity has achieved, maybe they'll start asking questions about their own societies." Admiral Yi Jun frowned. "That sounds like starting a revolution. That could cause chaos across the galaxy." "Sometimes chaos is better than oppression," Daeho replied, thinking of his own homeworld. President Haiwan made the decision. "We'll prepare for both possibilities. Admiral, ready our defenses, but we'll also try Daeho's plan. If we're going to face the Council, we shouldn't face them alone." Working with Earth's best communication experts, Daeho crafted a message that would be broadcast on frequencies used by every species in the galaxy. He told his own story, how he had been cast out for speaking the truth, and how Earth had welcomed him. He described human society, how they had overcome their differences, how they made decisions together, how they cared for the weak and gave opportunities to everyone. He explained that it was possible to build a civilization based on cooperation instead of domination. Most importantly, he sent a personal message to Bora and others like her across the galaxy. "You are not alone," he said. "There is a better way. We can build it together." The message was sent out through every communication array Earth had. It bounced off relay stations and spread across space, reaching planets and ships throughout Council territory. The response was immediate and overwhelming. On the Kelrani homeworld, Bora received the message in her engineering workshop. She had been planning her own small act of rebellion, but now she saw the possibility of something much larger. She began secretly organizing other Kelrani who were tired of the caste system. On a dozen other worlds, similar groups began forming. Lower caste beings who had been taught to accept their place started questioning why things had to be that way. Engineers and scientists who had been ignored because of their birth status began sharing forbidden knowledge. The Council reacted with panic. They tried to block Earth's transmissions, but the message had already spread too far. They arrested suspected rebels, but that only created more anger and resentment. Admiral Vortak, the Council's military commander, accelerated their departure schedule. The fleet left for Earth 3 days early, hoping to stop the rebellion before it grew stronger. But it was already too late. As the Council fleet traveled toward Earth, ships began breaking away. Some were damaged by sabotage from rebel crew members, others simply refused to follow orders. A few even changed sides completely and headed for Earth to offer their help. Bo-Ra's group managed to take control of 3 Kelrani warships. Using Daeho's message as a rallying cry, they convinced the crews to join their cause. Other species did the same across the galaxy. On Earth, Admiral Yi Jun watched the long-range sensors with amazement. The Council fleet is falling apart, he reported to President Heywan. Half their ships have turned back. The other half are fighting each other. But the core of the fleet, led by Admiral Vortak himself, continued toward Earth. 200 of the Council's most advanced warships, crewed by fanatics who would rather destroy human civilization than see their own way of life questioned. Commander Wu Jin, Admiral Yi Jun's best tactical officer, studied the enemy formations. "We're still outnumbered 5-1, he said grimly. "Even with the rebel ships helping us, it's going to be close." As the final confrontation approached, Daeho stood on the bridge of Earth's flagship alongside Admiral Yi Jun. Through the view screen, he could see the approaching enemy fleet. Behind them, a mixed group of human and rebel alien ships prepared for battle. "I'm sorry," Daeho said quietly. "This is my fault. If I hadn't spoken out." Admiral Yi Jun put a hand on his shoulder. "If you hadn't spoken out, we'd be facing this alone. Your courage gave others the strength to stand up too." The comm system crackled to life. It was Admiral Vortak demanding Earth's surrender. "You will submit to Council authority immediately, or we will destroy your pathetic planet." President Heywan responded calmly. "We offer you the same choice we give everyone who comes to Earth in peace. You can join us in building something better, or you can leave. But we will not submit to tyranny. Then you have chosen extinction." The Council fleet opened fire. The battle was fierce but brief. The Council's ships were more advanced, but their crews fought to preserve an old system they no longer believed in. The human and rebel ships fought for hope, for freedom, for the chance to build a better future. Commander Wu Jin proved that human tactical thinking was superior to Council doctrine. Instead of rigid formations, his ships moved like a living thing, adapting to each situation. Rebel crews who knew Council ship designs helped target their weaknesses. Most importantly, the rebels fought with a passion their enemies couldn't match. They had tasted the possibility of freedom, and they weren't willing to give it up. When Admiral Vortak's flagship exploded, the remaining Council ships surrendered. The old Galactic Order had fallen, destroyed not by superior weapons but by superior ideas. As reports came in from across the galaxy, it became clear that the revolution had succeeded. The rigid hierarchies that had controlled galactic civilization for millennia were crumbling. Species that had never worked together were forming new alliances based on equality and mutual respect. Daeho watched the celebration with mixed emotions. He was happy that his people would finally be free. But he was also sad for all the suffering that could have been avoided if the Council had been willing to listen. "What happens now?" he asked President Heywan. She smiled. "Now we do the hard work. We help everyone build something better, together." 2 years had passed since the Battle of Earth, and the galaxy was still changing. Daeho stood at the window of the new Galactic Federation headquarters, watching ships from dozens of different species come and go peacefully. It was a sight he had never imagined possible. The headquarters was built on Earth, in what used to be the old United Nations building. It had been expanded and modified to accommodate beings of many different sizes and atmospheric needs. The architecture reflected human values, open spaces, natural light, and areas designed for different species to meet and work together. As the Federation's first ambassador, Daeho spent his days helping former enemies learn to cooperate. It wasn't easy. Centuries of hatred and mistrust couldn't be erased overnight, but progress was being made. The Kelrani delegation had arrived that morning for trade negotiations with the Zorathi, their former enemies. 3 years ago, such a meeting would have ended in war. Today they were discussing joint mining operations that would benefit both species. "Brother," Deho turned at the familiar voice. Bora was running down the corridor toward him, her face bright with joy. She had arrived on the morning transport from their homeworld, her first visit to Earth. They embraced tightly. It had been 3 years since they had seen each other in person, though they spoke regularly through secure communications. "Earth is even more beautiful than your messages described," Bora said, looking around the building. And everyone seemed so relaxed. It was true. The beings moving through the Federation headquarters weren't the tense formal diplomats Deho remembered from council meetings. They talked and laughed together, shared meals, and seemed genuinely interested in each other's cultures. "How are things at home?" Deho asked as they walked toward his office. Bora's expression grew more serious. "Better, but not perfect. The old caste system is gone, but some people still think the old ways were better. Change is hard for everyone." This was the challenge facing every former council world. It was one thing to overthrow oppressive systems. It was much harder to build something better in their place. The Federation had learned to be patient. Teams of human advisors worked with local leaders to develop new governments and social systems. But the changes had to come from within each society. They couldn't be forced from outside. "The young people give me hope," Bora continued. "They don't remember the old ways as clearly. They're more willing to try new ideas." This was happening everywhere. Young beings across the galaxy were connecting with each other, sharing ideas and dreams that crossed species boundaries. Subin, now 18 and studying at the Federation Academy, was part of this new generation. They reached Daiho's office, where several other beings were waiting. There was Kextal, a former council admiral who now helped coordinate Federation defense forces, Zilna, a Vorthan scientist working on joint research projects, and Miros, a young Kelrani engineer who had become one of Bora's closest collaborators. "We've been discussing the proposal for joint exploration missions," Kextal explained. "Ships crewed by multiple species, exploring beyond council space. This was one of the Federation's most ambitious projects. Instead of each species exploring separately, they would combine their knowledge and resources. Human curiosity, Kelrani engineering, Vorthan science, and Zorathi navigation skills working together. Some council members are worried," Zilna said. "They think we might encounter hostile species that could threaten our new unity." Deho nodded. This fear was understandable. The Federation was still fragile. A major external threat could divide them again. "That's exactly why we need to explore together," Bora said firmly. "If we face unknown dangers alone, we'll be weak. If we face them together, we'll be strong." President Haywan arrived for the afternoon session along with the other Federation leaders. The president had been re-elected unanimously, not just by Earth but by representatives from every member world. Her steady leadership had been crucial during the difficult transition period. "I have good news," she announced. "The hegemony has agreed to join the Federation." This was a major breakthrough. The hegemony controlled a large region of space that had remained neutral during the revolution. Their decision to join would bring in dozens of new species and vast resources. They were impressed by our response to the refugee crisis on Kepler-7. President Haywan continued. "When the planet's ecosystem collapsed, we didn't ask about their politics or demand payment. We just helped. This had become the Federation's way. When disasters struck, they responded with aid, not conditions. When conflicts arose, they offered mediation, not military intervention. Slowly, other species were learning that the Federation could be trusted. Admiral Yi Jun joined them via holographic communication from the Orbital Defense Station. Long-range sensors have detected the return of the Deep Exploration Fleet. They'll be here in 3 days. The Deep Exploration Fleet had been humanity's gift to the galaxy, a group of advanced ships designed for very long-range exploration. They had been gone for 18 months investigating signals from beyond the galactic rim. Any word on what they found? Deho asked. Captain Sojin will brief us when they arrive, but the preliminary reports are interesting, Captain Sojin. Deho smiled, remembering the human officer who had first rescued him. She had become the Federation's premier explorer, leading missions that mapped new star systems and made contact with unknown species. That evening, Daiho took Bora to visit the Lee family. The small house in Seoul District hadn't changed much, but the neighborhood had grown more diverse. Kelrani, Vorthon, and human families now lived side by side. Kyung-ho and Mi-young welcomed Bo-ra like a long-lost daughter. Subin, home on break from the academy, bombarded her with questions about Kelrani engineering techniques. "Your brother talks about you constantly," Mi-young told Bo-ra over dinner. "He's very proud of what you've accomplished." Bo-ra had become one of the leading architects of the new Kelrani society. She designed cities where different castes could live and work together as equals. Her engineering projects provided clean water and energy to regions that had been neglected under the old system. "I learned from watching humans," Bo-ra said. "You showed us that cooperation produces better results than competition." After dinner, they sat in the garden where Dae-ho had spent so many peaceful evenings. The stars were bright overhead, representing the vast galaxy that was slowly learning to live in peace. "Do you ever regret it?" Bo-ra asked quietly. "Speaking out, losing everything, going into exile?" Dae-ho considered the question. He had lost his old life, his status, his comfortable place in Kelrani society, but he had gained something much more valuable, the knowledge that change was possible and the chance to help make it happen. "No," he said finally. "If I hadn't spoken out, I never would have found Earth. I never would have learned that there was a better way." 3 days later, Captain Sojin's fleet arrived at Earth. The ships were damaged but intact, their crews tired but excited. When Sojin met with the Federation leadership, her report changed everything. "We found them," she said simply. "The precursors. The species that built the ancient ruins scattered across the galaxy. They're still out there waiting." The precursors had been a mystery for millennia. Ancient ruins on hundreds of worlds showed evidence of a highly advanced civilization that had vanished long ago. Most species assumed they were extinct. "They're not extinct," Sojin continued. "They left the galaxy voluntarily millions of years ago. They've been watching us ever since, waiting to see if we would develop beyond warfare and oppression." The implications were staggering. The most advanced species in galactic history had been observing their progress, judging whether they were ready for something greater. "They want to meet with us," Sojin said. "All of us. The entire Federation. They say humanity's example has proven that cooperation is possible, even among very different species." President Haiwan looked around the table at the assembled leaders. Former enemies who had become allies, species that had never trusted each other now working together for the common good. "When?" she asked. "They'll send representatives in 1 year. They want to give us time to prepare, to make sure our unity is real and lasting." As the meeting ended, Dae-ho walked with Bo-ra to the observation deck. Earth spread out below them, blue and green and beautiful. Ships from across the galaxy moved peacefully through the orbital traffic patterns. 1 year, Bo-ra said. "Think we'll be ready?" Dae-ho watched a group of young beings from different species working together on a Federation science project. Among them was Subin, now a graduated explorer, teaching Kelrani engineering to a mixed group of students. "We've come this far," he said. "A few years ago I was in exile with nowhere to go. You were trapped in a society that wouldn't let you dream. Now look at us," Bo-ra smiled. "Cast out by the galaxy, taken in by Earth. And now the galaxy is taking us all in." The future was uncertain. There would be challenges ahead, conflicts to resolve, problems to solve. But for the first time in galactic history, all species were working together to face those challenges. Humanity had given the galaxy something more valuable than technology or weapons. They had given them hope. The hope that things could be better. The hope that cooperation was stronger than conflict. The hope that even the most different